Have you ever wondered what it really takes to turn an untouched piece of waterfront forest into a place you'll one day call home? Not a weekend cabin, not a vacation rental, but a home built with your own hands. Designed to last a lifetime. That's exactly the challenge Kevin and Catherine have taken on. As a married couple who share a passion for building, they've set out on an ambitious journey. Starting with nothing more than a wooded waterfront lot, they'll transform it step by step into the lake house they've always imagined, and eventually the place where they'll spend their retirement. This isn't just the story of building a house, it's the story of building a future. One of the biggest threats to any home is something most people never think about: water. These walls are built using insulated concrete forms, a system designed to be incredibly strong, energy efficient, and highly resistant to moisture. But even a foundation like this still needs protection. The real goal isn't just protecting the insulation, it's protecting the entire foundation system that will remain hidden beneath the ground for the rest of the home's life. Building a strong foundation is only half the job. Keeping it dry for the next 50 years is the other half. Every home reaches a moment when it suddenly begins to feel real. Until now, most of the work has happened below floor level, hidden inside the foundation. But from this point forward, every new wall begins to define the spaces where everyday life will eventually unfold. The timber-framed walls are built flat on the ground before being lifted into position. It's a faster, safer, and far more accurate way to build. Every stud, every opening, and every connection can be checked while the wall is still lying flat. The floor system does far more than create the surface people will eventually walk on. It locks the entire frame together, distributes structural loads across the building, and provides the rigid platform needed for everything that will be built above. Once the joists are in place, large sheets of plywood quickly transform the open framework into a solid working platform. Long before the exterior finishes are added, the structure needs its own protective skin. That's the role of these structural sheathing panels. It's one of those stages that's easy to overlook because most of it will eventually disappear behind the final exterior finish. But hidden layers like these often have the greatest impact on how a home performs over the decades. One wall can define the room, but it takes all of them working together to create a home. As more sections are lifted into place, the building begins to take on its final form, with each new wall further defining the shape of the house. Meanwhile, the interior partition walls begin to rise, one by one. Gradually, the open space starts to disappear. In its place, individual rooms begin to emerge, each with its purpose and character. For the first time, it's possible to walk through the future home and experience the flow of the floor plan exactly as it was intended. Outdoor spaces deserve the same attention as the rooms inside. This terrace may look like a simple concrete slab, but it plays a much bigger role in the overall design of the house. It creates a seamless transition between the interior and the landscape beyond, extending the living space far beyond the walls. The formwork defines the final shape, while the reinforcing steel gives the slab the strength to resist cracking as it carries years of daily use and seasonal temperature changes. Once the concrete is placed, there's no going back. Every level, every edge, and every finish has to be right the first time. Few architectural elements have a greater influence than the roof. More than simply protecting the home from the weather, it defines the proportions, the silhouette, and ultimately the feeling of the spaces inside. As the roof structure comes together, the building begins to reveal its identity. When entire sections are assembled on the deck first, the measurements are easier to control, and every connection can be checked more safely. Only then is the frame lifted into position. In a house like this, the roof does much more than close the building from above. It shapes the interior itself. Some parts of a house leave no room for error. The front gable is one of them. This triangular wall becomes the reference point for the entire roof structure. Every slope, every connection, and every line that follows depends on its accuracy. Strength doesn't come from a single rafter. It comes from the way every piece works together. As the remaining roof members are installed, the structure gradually becomes one connected system. Each new component supports the next, distributing loads across the entire frame instead of concentrating them in a single point. The main roof trusses are among the largest and most important structural elements in the entire house. Their size demands careful planning, precise lifting, and perfect coordination between everyone on site. Once they're suspended in the air, there's very little room for adjustment. Every connection has to line up exactly where it was designed to. The plywood sheathing ties the entire roof together, turning dozens of individual rafters into one rigid structure. It also creates the solid surface that will support every layer installed afterward, from the waterproof membrane to the final roofing material. For the first time, the house begins to feel protected instead of exposed. Have you ever wondered why roofs extend beyond the walls? It isn't just for appearance. Those overhangs are one of the simplest ways to protect a house. They help keep rain away from the walls, reduce the amount of direct sunlight reaching the windows, and provide shelter around entrances and outdoor spaces. It's a small architectural detail with a surprisingly big impact. From above, a roof can look surprisingly complicated, but every angle exists for a reason. The different slopes shape the rooms below, guide rainwater away from the building, and create the architectural character that will eventually define the entire home. It's a careful balance between engineering and design. Before the final roofing panels are installed, the entire surface is covered with a waterproof membrane. Its job is to stop any moisture that might find its way beneath the metal, protecting the structure. Only then are the metal panels secured into place, creating the durable outer shell that will withstand years of rain, snow, wind, and sunlight. It's a system built in layers. The different roof lines, deep overhangs, and clean geometry all come together to give the house its own distinct character. The roof is no longer just another stage of construction. It's the element that brings the entire design together, giving the building its final silhouette against the landscape. Everything that follows from here will add comfort, texture, and detail. From this moment on, construction becomes less about shaping the building and more about bringing it to life. Before the concrete floor is poured, a thick layer of rigid insulation is carefully installed across the entire surface. It creates a thermal barrier between the living space and the ground below, helping the house stay warmer in winter and cooler in summer. Keeping heat inside is only part of the equation. It also has to be distributed efficiently throughout the home. That's where radiant floor heating comes in. Instead of warming the air first, this system heats the floor itself, allowing warmth to rise naturally through every room. The result is a more even temperature, greater energy efficiency, and a level of comfort that's difficult to achieve with traditional heating systems. Every pipe has a destination. Before the concrete is poured, each heating loop is connected to a central manifold that controls how warm water flows throughout the house. Once every connection has been checked, the concrete can finally be poured, permanently sealing the entire system beneath the floor. A house can stand for months without windows or doors, but it never truly feels connected to its surroundings until the glass is installed. Glazed openings do far more than let in natural light. They frame the landscape, shape the views from every room, and create a seamless connection between the comfort inside and the world outside. From this moment on, the landscape becomes part of everyday life. Now, attention shifts to the spaces within. Interior walls do much more than divide a floor plan. They organize the home, creating rooms with different purposes, different levels of privacy, and different ways of being used throughout the day. Rooms that once existed only as lines on a drawing become real places with their own proportions, purpose, and character. Hallways emerge, private spaces take shape, and the overall layout becomes easier to experience than to imagine. It's a subtle transformation. One of the biggest advantages of this design becomes obvious inside. Instead of flat ceilings, every room follows the shape of the roof itself. The sloping ceilings leave little room for error, forcing every partition to fit precisely within the structure above. It's a slower and more demanding process than framing a conventional home. A doorway does far more than connect two rooms. It determines how people move through a home, what they see as they enter a space, and how naturally one room flows into the next. It's one of those details that seems insignificant during construction, but influences the way the house is experienced every single day. Whenever possible, the partitions are assembled flat on the floor first. It allows every connection to be measured more accurately before the wall is lifted into place. It's a simple method, but it greatly reduces the chance of errors. There's a reason the bottom of a wall deserves just as much attention as the wall itself. This narrow strip is one of the most vulnerable parts of the entire exterior. Rainwater, melting snow, and ground moisture all tend to collect near the base of a building, making proper sealings essential. That's why every joint is carefully sealed before the exterior finishes are installed. Stone, as an exterior finish, develops character over time rather than losing it. Its color remains remarkably stable, it requires very little maintenance, and it can withstand decades of changing weather without dramatically altering its appearance. That's one of the reasons stone continues to be used as an architectural accent even in modern homes. It adds texture, durability, and a sense of permanence that few other exterior materials can match. There's a reason Kevin and Catherine chose to include a covered outdoor living space in their design. A deck like this extends the home beyond its walls, creating a place that's just as comfortable for a quiet morning coffee as it is for gathering with family and friends. The roof above provides shade in the summer and shelter during changing weather, making the space usable far more often than an open deck. For a lakefront home, that decision makes even more sense. It allows everyday life to happen outdoors while staying comfortably connected to the home inside. An exterior trim is installed before the siding is complete. At first glance, these black frames appear to be decorative. In reality, they serve a much more important purpose. They create clean transitions around windows and doors, cover exposed edges, and help the different exterior materials meet with precision. Exterior cladding protects the building from rain, wind, and sunlight while giving the house its architectural identity. Few people realize that siding is more than just a decorative finish. Every board is part of a larger system. Together, they create a protective outer layer that helps shield the structure from the elements. It may seem like siding is simply attached to the wall. In reality, the installation follows a carefully planned sequence. Every board must align perfectly with the next. Small inaccuracies become far more noticeable as the installation progresses, which is why builders constantly check spacing, level, and alignment throughout the process. Horizontal siding has remained popular for generations, for good reason. Its overlapping profile encourages rainwater to shed naturally down the facade rather than collect on the surface. At the same time, the long horizontal lines visually widen the building, helping it feel more grounded within the landscape. Before an HVAC system can be installed, the couple first prepares a dedicated concrete pad that will support it for years to come. It may look like a simple concrete slab, but it serves several important purposes. It provides a stable, level foundation, keeps the unit above standing water, and helps prevent movement as the ground freezes and thaws through the seasons. Few rooms in a home demand more careful planning than the bathroom. This is one of the few spaces that's exposed to water every single day. That means every surface hidden behind the finished tiles has to be designed to keep moisture exactly where it belongs. Before a single tile can be installed, the walls are covered with waterproof backer boards. Every joint screw penetration, inside corner, and plumbing opening is then carefully sealed to create one continuous waterproof barrier. Even features like recessed shower niches require the same level of protection. Without proper waterproofing, these areas can easily become weak points, where moisture finds its way behind the finished surface. Long before the room looks complete, every plumbing connection has to be positioned with precision. The sink drain, water supply lines, and shower drain all determine where the finished surfaces will begin and end. Few parts of a home require finishes and plumbing to work together as precisely as a bathroom. The shower tiles have to be carefully aligned so every cut fits neatly around the drain and other fixtures. It's a stage where craftsmanship is measured in millimeters, because once everything is finished, there's very little room for adjustment. While large tiles create a clean, modern appearance, they don't easily follow the gentle slopes needed to direct water toward the drain. Smaller mosaic tiles are much more flexible, allowing the installer to create a smooth, continuous fall without uneven edges or awkward cuts. Although it's often chosen for its distinctive appearance, the herringbone pattern does something more than add visual interest. The repeating diagonal layout naturally guides the eye across the surface, making walls feel taller and spaces appear more dynamic than a simple stacked pattern. Different patterns help define different areas without the need for additional walls or partitions. A bold herringbone layout can turn a shower into the visual focal point, while a simpler stacked or running pattern creates a quieter backdrop for the rest of the room. This balance prevents the space from feeling visually overwhelming. Instead of competing with one another, the patterns work together, giving each area its own identity while maintaining a cohesive overall design. It's a subtle design principle. When different patterns are combined thoughtfully, even a relatively small bathroom can feel more layered, more intentional, and far more visually interesting. It's easy to think grout exists only to fill the gaps between tiles. In reality, it plays a much bigger role. Grout locks the tiles together, helps distribute loads across the surface, and seals the joints against moisture and dirt. A matching grout creates a clean, continuous surface, while a contrasting color highlights every individual tile and emphasizes the pattern itself. Before the walls are primed, they're first treated with a moisture-resistant coating. This protective layer helps reduce moisture absorption, improving the long-term durability of the drywall and creating a more stable surface for the finishes that follow. Fresh drywall is highly porous. If paint were applied directly to it, different areas would absorb it at different rates, leading to uneven color, inconsistent sheen, and a finish that wears much faster over time. Primer solves that problem by sealing the surface and creating a uniform base for the paint to bond to. Primer also reveals small imperfections that are easy to miss beforehand, giving builders one final opportunity to make corrections before the finish coat is applied. It's a process that will soon disappear beneath layers of paint. But it's these invisible preparation steps that often determine how good the finished walls will look years from now. Color has the power to completely transform the way a space is perceived. Just hours earlier, these rooms still felt like a collection of drywall, exposed joints, and unfinished surfaces. But the moment the first coat of light gray paint begins to cover the walls, the entire interior starts to come together. A finished floor is only as good as the subfloor beneath it. No matter what flooring is installed later, hardwood, tile, or engineered flooring. It all depends on the stability of this structural layer. Now Kevin continues doing one of the most important jobs in the house, providing a solid, stable foundation for every step taken above it. Each panel must fit tightly against the next and be securely fastened to the floor framing below. Even small gaps or movement at this stage can affect every layer that's added afterward. That's why he spends so much time on something that will never be seen again. That's why builders spend so much time on something that will never be seen again. Recessed ceiling lights have become a popular choice. In a double-height space like this, their placement becomes even more important. Each one distributes light evenly across the walls and ceiling, avoiding dark corners and harsh shadows. Some flooring patterns have remained in style for centuries, and Herringbone is one of them. This pattern naturally draws the eye across the room, adding movement and making the floor itself a defining architectural feature rather than just a surface to walk on. Of course, that elegance comes with added complexity. Every plank has to be positioned with precision because even a slight misalignment can throw off the entire pattern as it continues across the room. It's a slower installation than a traditional straight layout, but the result is a floor that has remained timeless for more than 2,000 years. Wood is never completely still. It continues to respond to changes in temperature and humidity. That's why hardwood flooring is never installed tightly against the walls. A small expansion gap is intentionally left around the perimeter, giving the floor enough room to move. After months of structural work, attention shifts to finish carpentry. Doors are installed, casings frame every opening, and baseboards complete the transition between the walls and the floor. None of these elements make the house stronger. Instead, they make it feel complete. No single stage creates the finished result. Concrete alone isn't enough. Neither is framing, roofing, plumbing, or interior finishing. A home comes to life only when hundreds of individual systems and thousands of carefully executed details begin working together as one. That's what makes projects like this so remarkable. What began as nothing more than a wooded waterfront lot has become something far greater than a completed house. Every carefully considered detail represents thousands of individual decisions made along the way. Together, they have created a home designed to be lived in for decades. For Kevin and Catherine, this project was never simply about building a lake house. It was about creating a place where ordinary moments will one day become lifelong memories. And perhaps that's the most remarkable part of any home. If this build inspired you, subscribe to follow the next project and share your ideas in the comments. Your suggestion could inspire what we build next.